Let's talk to animals. My name is Shannon, and I'm an animal sensitive and intuitive with animal love languages. And this fine and feathery fellow, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, is Pearl Cuts. He never misses an episode. He's very hungry for his breakfast right now. And I told him if he just sticks around for the intro, you can go eat to your heart's content, right? And for those of you who are listening, maybe you're picking up on a few little chirps. I am so delighted to welcome Maribeth Decker today. And we are going to be chatting about all things animal communication. Okay, go eat your breakfast. Go eat your breakfast. You know, we're very animal friendly around here. So if you're listening or watching and you're hearing sounds that don't sound like they're coming from Homo sapien species, that's because they're not. We're delighted. We're very interspecies friendly here. We're talking about all things animal communication. You know, this podcast is really inspired by the animals. I got the idea the way I get all the ideas that I think are really good. It came as a download from the animals, from the great spirit, from nature, saying, you know, let's do a podcast about demystifying animal communication. Let's talk about the big woo elephant in the room that's not so woo. Let's talk about the thing that we all know in our spirit and have forgotten in our heads, which is that interspecies communication is our birthright. It's part of our operating system. You just probably never had anyone tell you to go over to your little applications file and scroll through and check out what all those little different cool programs are that have come pre-installed, and unzip the file and open it and discover to your delight and wonder that when your dog is staring at you, or your cat is flicking her tail, or your turtle walks towards you with what you can only describe as a smile on his face, you really are communicating with animals. And those are just really simple examples. So I'm delighted to be doing these episodes each week on YouTube and on your favorite streaming platforms for podcast services, and welcoming innovative, compassionate, empathic animal communicators to share stories about how we woke up to this ability and this gift, how we learn to unpack it and tap in and tune in, and what it's like. And if you're curious, how to work with us or how to get started on your own journey to becoming an animal communicator. So Maribeth Decker is with us this morning from Sacred Grove. Welcome, Maribeth.
Thank you. I was so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak.
Oh,
today.
Delighted. Absolutely. I was just sharing with you before the podcast started how when I landed on sacredgrove.com, which is your website, I was like, oh, what is this? This is speaking to my soul. This is like Sacred Grove. Oh, that sounds wonderful. And I'm like hunting around and looking around. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's an animal communicator. I must have her on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I guess I'll share with everybody what I shared with you, because it was such a good way to speak it. And I think your energy brought this out into my consciousness. So Sacred Grove, I called it Sacred Grove for a while, not knowing why. And then I remembered that I had a spiritual experience in the woods, and literally, I asked God if God existed, and I got an experiential reply that says, yes, I am everywhere and full of love, and it's conscious love, it's intelligent love, but it was the experience of it. And what I realized, I think at some level, because you're talking about a young teenager, is that spirit and nature are just like this. They're intertwined. They're part and parcel together. And I think that means so much to me, that I didn't grow up as an animal communicator. Okay. I like to say I didn't pop out of the womb talking to animals.
Right.
But it came on later on. So I would just like to stop there and let you keep going, and we'll see where we go with this.
Well, I think that's, it's so, and I'm so grateful and glad that you started with, because you had this experience when you were fairly young, you were a teenager, and already, you were questioning, you were seeking, your spirit, your soul were trying to, make sense of it all. And I mean, how many of you listening or watching can relate to that? And just being like, we're still trying. I'm 50 this year. I'm still trying to make some, turning 51, still haven't managed to make sense of it all, but I'm making progress. And, so we may not, many of us do come into this work later in life. This is a relatively recent adventure for me, although it's certainly my love of animals. I started begging my parents for a parrot when I was 7. And at 8, Perky, my first parakeet, arrived, and I lived we lived by a bayou. We rescued baby water turtles. I always had parrots. We had dogs. I was always fascinated with wildlife. I could spend a whole podcast telling you about the time my mother enrolled me in a local nature course, and we had to do some kind of wading exercise in a little stream, and a fish got in my shorts. It was just, but we didn't know it was a fish at the time, and everybody, all the volunteer coordinators and the moms were like, don't move, we don't know what it is. And I'm like, oh, I really need to know, I need to move. We need to figure this out before whatever it is decides to introduce itself to me. And so we had these experiences. I mean, if you're listening to a podcast called Let's Talk to Animals, let's be honest, there's something in you that resonates with the phrase animal communication. What is going on with that aspect of you? It's, I think we hit a moment in our life, and for some of us, like you, Maribeth, it was quite young, where we become willing to explore. We become willing to ask the question. We become willing to invite ourselves to a conversation, even if there's a part of our brain or our conditioning or important people in our life who are yelling, no, that's too woo. No, that's off limits. No, that doesn't exist. No, that doesn't agree with the theology or the philosophy or the structure or the culture that you've been raised in. We like, I don't care. I'm here. I'm alive. I want to know. I want to ask.
Yeah. And that is so true, because I didn't even share that. I mean, that did not fit in with what I was learning, in my family. And I don't know how to say. It's not like it was not like it was bad in any way, but it didn't fit. And it just didn't fit. So I was just like, okay, well, that was interesting. Let's move on and go to school and figure out how to survive high school and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what to do with it. I'm also one who, when I look back, I think my happiest times were outside. We're just being outside. We had a little stream by the house, and hanging out there and picking up rocks and seeing who lived underneath there. Got lots of memories of just being with friends, kids, and running out and being outside. And I love reading, but I think the being outside part was the stuff that really stuck with me, and being a part of nature.
Yeah, feeling connected, feeling connected to something that seems so visually unlike us, and yet there's something so. I mean, I always say none of us line up at the tax accountant's office on our holidays. We head to the beach, we go to the forest, we want to be. We seek out movies with beautiful landscapes, but there are things that nearly all of us share in common, and we can pick up on these common threads when we look at how we spend our free time, where we like to connect, and it doesn't apply to all of us, but to many of us, and definitely to folks that would gravitate towards this kind of a podcast versus crush it and grow rich on a 4-day work week, or CrossFit your way to bodybuilding championships or whatever. I mean, there's so many different things that, but the gathering point for people who really resonate with nature and animals is, probably there's going to be a community like this, a podcast like this, or, experiences like this. And speaking of which, because it can be so, it's like when we give ourselves permission to ask the questions, we give ourselves permission to meet ourselves, to get to know ourselves, to find out what makes us tick, to invite ourselves to a conversation that is curious and open rather than judgmental and shaming or blaming or guilting or, shoving the to-do list in our face. And so let's talk about that. For you, your process, you had these experiences when you were young, and then you pursued, something that felt a little bit more maybe reasonable or safe at the time. And here you are with Sacred Grove. So, what was that process? What has your journey been like? How did you end up here in this wonderful place?
People talk about having a bucket list, but I feel like either it's a bucket list or the most meandering road one could ever choose. Recovery from alcoholism in my mid-20s, and that started to get a handle on, I don't know if anybody's moved from one way of living to another that's so much better for them, you know what I'm talking about. Joining the Navy, seeing the world, which also, actually, when you get out of your comfort zone and live in other cultures, for me, again, it was a way of expanding my mind that beyond what my experiences were growing up. So I'm just going through that. And then, losing my husband at a young age also brought me into how do you look at the spiritual aspect of death? And how do you survive it? And so we're going deep here. But we
like deep, by the way. We like deep around here.
Oh, good. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Go deep or go home. That's our motto.
Oh, love it. All right. So I'm like, I don't know if you want to hear this, but I think all that stuff was, pulling off the stuff that wasn't needed to start to reveal what is me. And somewhere along the way, as I was working in an association, I got an intuitive hit to do massage. And through massage, I met a Reiki master. All right, so we go there, start learning energy healing. And then my dog started communicating with me. I didn't even know animal communication was a thing. This is a sailor story. There's some swearing in it, but it's funny. So I hope everybody will.
We know all those words.
Oh, you know it.
We do know all those words.
All right. So I tried some energy healing on my dog, Eddie. She was a girl. Kids named her. And she was very near the end, and she passed anyway. And later on, I was working on her companion, Mitsubishi. She was a beautiful Siberian Husky. Kind of looked like a white gray wolf. His back end was getting bad. I was doing healing on him on the couch. And the way I thought it at the time was, he looked at me, and if he could speak, I swear he said, "Don't try that shit on me. It killed Eddie." And he jumped off the couch. Like, I've had it, baby. Get out of here. And so I'm like, what? So,
right.
And then there were some other great stories that are on my website, but that was like the funniest one. And I realized he said that to me. And when I became an animal communicator and clear about it, I went back and said, look, I didn't kill her. I couldn't keep her from dying, but certainly I made her transition easier. And he let me do energy healing on him after that. So
right.
And then my dog, when I got my dog Tibor, who came into my life after Mitsubishi died, I kept seeing with him, they have this training where it's usually men get these huge covers all over their arms, legs, and they have dogs attack them.
Yes, yes, like the canine, like the protection dog training.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Uh-huh.
So same couch, a few years later, I'm sitting there, and every time I sit next to Tibor, I'm seeing this vision. Now, if it happened once, it'd be like, wow, my head's going weird. But twice, 3 times, I finally talked to a friend, Mary, and she says, well, that's animal communication. There's this thing.
Wow, Mary.
Thank you. And I started getting training on it. Like it had opened up, but I wanted to, I'm that kind of person. I'm like, well, now what do I do with it? This is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more, you know. So that's where I did training, I did practice, and they're working with people, with their animals. They have such an open heart. So I get the joy of working with humans, open-hearted, in an open-hearted space, because I'm working with the animals that they love. So that like kind of grabbed me and said, oh yeah, I want to do this. and hope that answered the question. And we took a long road to get there.
No, it's, I really feel like, first of all, I'm very intuitively guided by who I invite to join me join us, right, for these podcasts. And it's important for, so much of our culture has, celebrated being young and the possibility of youth and the energy of youth and the wonderful, glamorous, successful, youthful life. And yet life, I say, if we were here for a vacation, it probably would last a few weeks. We'd get bored and go home, but we're here for, many, many decades, most of us. And that's because it takes that long for us to start uncovering ourselves and really find out, I often share on this podcast that, when I started communicating with animals, it felt like parts of myself turned on, like extra senses and deeper abilities that I had no idea were there. And, proof right here that, we're never too old to learn something new about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I love your spirit of adventure because I'm the same way. It's like I learned something. I'm like, okay, what can I do with it? How can I share it? I want to tell everybody about it because it's so cool. And the very first time I ever communicated with an animal, my first thought was, everyone can do this. I had one communication with an iguana. It was my very first. I was just convinced. I was convinced that I was going to be the only person in my animal communication class who wasn't going to hear. I wasn't going to get anything. I was going to be, I'm going to have a sign on my back for the rest of my life. This one can't hear animals. And it didn't happen that way, and it takes some amount of courage. In fact, I have yet to meet a fellow student who's enrolling in any kind of a formal course of study, and there's lots of them available today, who doesn't have that not so secret, at least a doubt, if not a fear, even if they've already had lots of experiences, right, Pearl? I always find it very interesting when he gets vocal versus when he's quiet, right? Come here, I know. Yeah, he says, you're interrupting my platform. My speaking platform. Yeah, that was a beautiful song. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's just getting curious about ourselves can lead to some wonderful adventures. And, right now, at least, we're still kind of in the age of the pandemic. And it's like, it's good to know you don't have to be able to leave your house to have an adventure. You don't have to be able to, I've noticed that during the pandemic, more and more and more of us are heading to nature. I mean, I go to Lowe's and Home Depot and the lines are on the block, our gardens, all of it, everybody's out working on their landscaping. It's like, this is where and you don't even have to go that far to have an adventure. So, you've shared some very colorful experiences about talking to animals. So tell us a little bit about this. What is it like? People who are listening who are like, maybe I've had an experience, maybe I haven't, maybe it doesn't fit. The experience I've had doesn't fit what I think animal communication would be like if I was having it. Maybe it's not the Dr. Dolittle model or whatever model you subscribe to. What has it been like for you talking with animals?
That's a really good question. I think that things have shown up in different ways, and that leads me to think that we probably have, when we start, and really easy way for the communication to get through. It's like, this is the stuff that works for me. Maybe it's hearing, like I heard, or seeing, or when you start with the sensing or knowing, and I think a lot of us do, the problem with that is it sounds like it's our own brain, like we made that up. And I believe more accurately is we've tuned into our animals and we're getting accurate information from them. Oh, he's cute. And I feel like we're playing hide and seek right now.
Oh, we are. And he's positioning himself for necklace success here. Aren't you?
Okay.
Aren't you?
All right.
And he's not super keen on these enormous wireless earbuds that I use. So yeah, they're about the size of his head, right? Yeah. So I have to kind of. He's not too excited about those. He's cute. Those of you who are listening, Pearl is scampering around the back of me and is, I mentioned durable necklaces for a reason. So yeah, it's a nice little challenge for him. Keeps his feet sharp. Thank you for
explaining that. I forget I'm seeing. So,
right.
So people will pick up different things. We might even feel emotions. You might feel emotions. You might feel, a lot of folks I start working with, that they just know when they're connected, and there's might be a feeling in their body. You might get a picture. So for me, first, it was just a sense in my body, a knowing. And then it went to, the stories about seeing, hearing. And I think the best thing one could do for yourself is to say, if you ever think you just, if you ever thought the thought, if my dog, my cat, my bird, my turtle could speak, you should just like line it out and say, I just heard him say, I just heard him share, I saw this vision they gave me, and just push past the logical side and say, I got it, thank you. Yeah, give me more. So where else do I want to go with it? I love the way you shared about how it's all there for us, waiting for us to unplug it. For me, it's like we are already set up and wired to take in information. We know it. If you study the brain, our eyes aren't actually seeing, they're sending information to the brain, and the brain is making the picture for us. Same thing with the ears. So when energetic information comes in, there's the parts of the brain that says, oh yeah, let me translate this into a picture, or let me put this into words for you, or, it's already there. It's already there.
So cool. I hadn't even thought about that, and if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the image or the data originally come into the eyes and it's like upside down, and like there's something at the back of the eye that has to flip it, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in there, and it's really about kind of breaking down our tendency to believe what we've been told or taught, and start learning to question. Wait a minute, just because this textbook or that expert or this author or that teacher has told us this is the only way it can happen. I mean, pretty much almost every amazing breakthrough that we've had as a species has come when somebody has discovered something that everybody else says couldn't happen or doesn't exist. And then it makes these news headlines. Everybody gets so excited and everything changes. And we can be a part of that. We can be pioneers. You know, we can, one of the ways that because, you know, we have these little successes where we have these great communications, and then we start kind of trying to put some structure around it. And that's where we're heading next in this episode as well. But, you know, we'll have these early successes, you know, some people want to call it beginner's luck or whatever. And then, you know, there's this tendency to start, you know, kind of doubting or thinking, oh, did I just make that up? And it's like, actually, imagination is a superpower, and it's a right brain function. Imagination is also part of our brain, and it's a great way to send and receive information. Which is why I love what you said about, you know, and that's a great exercise to do. You know, if you know, the next time you catch your animal staring at you, this is one that sends a lot of people to animal communicators. She just keeps staring at me and staring and staring. It's weirding me out. I know she's trying to tell me something, you know. It's like, so sit down and write out, you know, or ask yourself, I wonder what my animal's trying to tell me right now. And then just answer. And where I'm going with this is, I have had conversations out loud with my animals for years. Like, I'm literally doing both parts. Like, we're having, you know, it's like a one woman play, you know, or one woman, one parrot play or whatever, you know. And I realized, wait a minute, what if I'm not just making up his answers? What if I am, if you want to see examples of this, you can go over to our Instagram, Love and Feathers and Shells. We've got plenty of examples. Some people love how I talk to my animals. Some people can't stand it. Those are probably the people that don't find animal communication interesting. Of course, you get all kinds when you're out on social media. But it's just, you know, I finally started to think, you know, what if these are really just imagination assisted responses? You know, because he has so many ways of sharing. Like right now, he's so happy with what we're talking about. This is his happy, happy, happy bird chirp.
Yeah.
He loves it.
He does. And, you know, I for me, they always talk about gateway drugs. Imagination is a gateway to intuition and receiving and sharing. That is it. That is it. And we all have it. We all were little kids imagining stuff. We just got to open that little childlike wonder again about what could happen. What it could be. Could this be the truth? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I experiencing? And the other part that I love that I found is, if you're opening your heart, communication through the heart is very, very effective. And you don't have to be a Reiki master. You just have to think of how much you love your animal. And then share or listen as you feel that love for them. I think that really amplifies whatever's going on.
My goodness, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
The love, right? The love.
Yeah. And I don't think you even have to know the animal to just feel love. I don't think that's a requirement. We've all got that capacity to feel those good feelings toward other beings.
Well, it just makes perfect sense. I mean, maybe we haven't been going to a lot of parties or gatherings lately, but, you know, think about the last time you walked into a place and, you know, you met somebody new. You know, what facilitated the conversation? What helped you to connect and start to feel at home in this new space with these beings that you didn't already know? It was curiosity, interest. How are you doing? What do you do for work? Asking questions. Animals love to share information. We seldom think to ask. You know, when we start asking questions, I've experienced very, very few animals who were not keen, eager, chomping at the bit, if you will, to share. Delighted to discover someone from our species that was willing and open and able to hear and to have that dialogue. And it happens in stages. I love how you touched on, we all have maybe our pathway that it comes through more easily for us. Like for me, it's always been either conversationally or just these deep knowings where it's kind of like I don't really know how I know this. I just know this, and that is a very powerful way to communicate with an animal. But there are all kinds of powerful ways. If you're curious about this and you're listening, you're watching right now, head over to animallovelanguages.com/camp. I have a 5-day freebie for you, 5 minutes a day. You can just learn about these different ways. There's just some of the many ways that our animals deliver data or information. And then, of course, our brain gets to work delivering back the communication in an image or a knowing or a feeling. And there's all kinds of different ways, but this will get you started. You can work with your own animal and just play, just have a good time. So let's talk a little bit about, for those of you who are listening or watching and you are wanting a little bit more structure. And I'm going to be the first to admit it, when I was like, okay, this animal, because I got a download one day in meditation. I was like, oh, I'm lying there minding my own business, meditating. And all of a sudden I hear, you are an animal sensitive and intuitive. I was like, cool. Okay. It's not the worst thing anyone's ever said to me. It's like, all right. What does that mean? I mean, I love animals. I've always loved animals, but like, what exactly does that mean? And so through that process, I discovered it. I had a coaching session with one of my mentors, and she said, "Oh, this is a brilliant career path for you." And it was like, okay, last time I checked, I had a career path, but just unpacking that, I realized, I'm not really that happy working as a freelance writer, and kind of run its course for me. And wow, you mean like this is something I get to do versus something I have to do? Like, but then, my rational, logical, adulting brain kicks in and goes, well, then you need to go to school. And, and so it's been a long time since I've gone to school. So I went back to school. And that is a path that is available much more today than it was 10 or 20 years ago, when some of the preeminent teachers that are teaching today got their start. They didn't really have anybody to study with. It certainly wasn't easy to go online and, scroll through all the options. But just talk to us a little bit about how you started putting a little structure around this so you could get to where, for those of us who might want to pursue this as a path,
Okay, that's good. So what really helped me was I was so new to the intuitive side that I took a lot of intuitive classes and opened it up. And then, like I did an intuitive boot camp, telepathy boot camp with 2 sisters. Was great. And then I found some people that I really liked, and I did take classes from them because there's a lot of, so I work with families, generally people and their animals, and there's a lot of nuances about how to compassionately share stuff back and forth. I do a lot of end of life things. And so I think taking classes and getting experience, if you're going to work with the human even more.
Yeah, this is a good point.
You need some training.
Yeah, this is a very good point.
You start to touch on things that are near and dear to their heart, as well as the animal, and the success of being able to share and for them to get what you're saying. You got to have some abilities about communicating well with the human species as well as
Yeah.
the animal.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my teachers calls it managing your human, which is a little heavy-handed, but there is, it's about having the empathy and the compassion for the human as well.
Absolutely,
And that is
absolutely.
such an important point. Such
It
an
is.
important point.
And the other thing that I really love is for me, energy healing is part of the communication, because there are a lot of kerfuffles and snafus and things that happen, and helping people and animals release some of that so they can have good relationships. Again, I'm talking about what I call the family unit. That's very cool. It's a very added piece if that's what calls you. I'll say it that way.
And
Okay.
that's,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So like I created, took me a while. I created a UConnect class, teaching it right now online. And we do mostly animal communication, but I give everybody a taste of energy healing. It's really to focus them on connecting with their own animals. But because I want people to have the abilities to help release their animal's anxiety. Sometimes talk therapy helps. It does. Sometimes a little energy helps too, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for letting me share that.
Oh my goodness, that's why we're here. I mean, it really is. We're looking at if we think, same species family dynamics are challenging, then you add the interspecies family dynamics, and everybody's got their own relationship with the animal and with each other and with themselves. I mean, at 5 decades of life, I have yet to feel like I've really even mastered communication with my own species, even the ones that I've practiced extensively with. And so, in fact, sometimes those are the most challenging ones. And then we have, we can have animals come into the mix, and you just amp it up a notch or 10. But this is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
All the other stuff, the rent earning stuff, and the, it's all pointing back to how skilled, how willing are we to relate with compassion, empathy, and love towards ourselves and towards others, no matter what species.
Absolutely.
And some animals have cuteness on their side, and it really helps. It smooths the way quite a bit, or at least eases us through some of the bumpier, more challenging bits in the road. If I was cuter, I probably would have less challenges with the other humans that I really do. And you really think about it, but it's like, it feels like a wonderful, it's like, oh my goodness, I just got this, like the hugest basket of Halloween candy ever, when you first discover that you can communicate. I mean, at least that's how it felt for me, and for most of
me too.
Oh my goodness, like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
I never got into the Dr. Dolittle thing, but it's a big deal. And like, people are like, that is real. It's like finding out there is an actual Harry Potter, it's like, there's a Luke Skywalker. That would be it for me. Luke Skywalker. Han Solo, like, I'm a total Star Wars geekazoid. But, then you start to realize that there's all this depth. There can be trauma, there can be drama, there can be misunderstandings, like you had to deal with Eddie and Mitsubishi, just like, wait a minute, I don't want that shit that killed my sister, It's like, no, let me clear this up for you. There can be all kinds of assumptions. Don Miguel Ruiz is one of my favorite teachers, the 4 Agreements. He says, don't make assumptions. We make assumptions all the time. He also says, be skeptical, but learn to listen. In other words, open ourselves up to new perspectives. And that includes taking this gift that we have seriously, taking it with a keen awareness of it's a source of power. It's a source of influence. It's a pathway to change, and we want to be careful with 2 L's about how we learn and how we use it. And so it's worth seeking out mentors. I'm a huge proponent of mentors and teachers who, in building our tribe, our community of fellow communicators, both those who are a few steps ahead to those who are coming up behind us. And how we embark on this new path is everything. Everything matters.
I love it.
Everything matters. So tell us, Maribeth, we're nearing the end of our time here. Tell us about how people can work with you, how people can reach out to you and find you and work with you.
I think that the best way to find out more about me is to go visit my site, sacredgrove.com. And I'll tell a quick joke. Beautiful. It is not Sacred Groove. That sounded good. One of my mentors said, "Is that Sacred Groove?" I said, "No, which I thought about."
Heck yeah.
Groove, that's okay. And the other one that I think I should change next month is, somebody said, "Is that Scary Grove?" I'm like, no,
oh my goodness, maybe just for October, right?
So it's Sacred, SACREDGROVE.com. There's lots of information there. You can contact me. Email is my easiest way to keep up with you. Maribeth at sacredgrove.com. And I work with individuals. I do group sessions as well, as I talked about. And real quick, I am doing the 2nd edition of my book, Peace and Passing, Comfort for Loving Humans During Animal Transitions.
Those of you who are listening, she just held up a beautiful, beautiful book, and you can find more about it at sacredgrove.com.
Thank you. Please. Yeah, thank you for letting me share all that.
Well, no, I keep going. I just wanted to make sure that those who are listening understood what was going on. So
thank you, ma'am. So that's there. Since I worked so much with transitions, I've really laid out everything I could think of. I mean, literally, the before, the during, and the after, and spiritual ways of looking at the transition that will help us. I don't know that we can get rid of our grief. That's not even right. Grief honors somebody we love. But to help us over maybe the guilt and the sadness and find peace. The other place you might want to join is, I have a group called Spiritual Pet People on Facebook, and we just share nice, fun things, just positive things. I know a lot about what's going on in the world of animals, and a lot of it is not good. In our little space, we just have good stuff going on there, and that's what we do. We enjoy the beauty of animals in that space.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for seeding the world with good vibes, for planting those seeds. It's so easy to, without even realizing it, place our attention on issues or in areas that just drag us down and make us feel powerless, versus how we spend our attention and our energy influences how we will be when we're out in the world and with others. And so even it's good and necessary and healthy to be aware of the balance and the extremes that make that up. It also allows us to take action, but fueling ourselves with cuteness and with positivity and with wonderful stories of healing and redemption, that's what gives us the fuel to create change in the face of what can otherwise feel like overwhelming odds stacked against us. We all need all the positivity and all the cuteness that we can get.
We do.
We really, 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 really do.
We need to fill up again.
We do. And I love that you work with grief. I just recently lost my father, and a few months before that I lost my dearest friend in the world. And you know,
I'm sorry.
we come to grief, thank you. We come to grief at all different stages of life. Sometimes it can feel very intense, and it is something that's important to talk about, and to just to hold space for one another. I know the little feathers, right? Because we have a wonderful fall breeze, and it just makes us look even fluffier, doesn't it?
That was really cute.
The sound of the
little
besotted mommy guard kissing flush gray belly feathers. It's a staple for every podcast episode. Whether you came here for it or not, you're leaving with it. So I just want to just say just deep, heartfelt words of gratitude to you, Maribeth. Again, at sacredgrove.com. With a side of Sacred Groove, just in case you're interested. I just adore that. And Scary Grove, if you're listening in October, we love it. Lots of different ways that you could reach out to Maribeth and work with her. And, I have to just kind of put this in as a PS. If you've never had a direct experience of animal communication before, or you're not sure if you have, but you're just fascinated with the topic for whatever reason, my very first experience, and I honestly don't even remember how I discovered, I found a book on animal communication, and one book led to another, and I found it. And the person that I read, I hired. It's like, I just want to talk to my animals. And that gave me so much confirmation that it's a thing. It's a real thing. It's one thing to argue with yourself in your head about whether it's real or whether it's possible or not. It's another thing to give yourself the opportunity to experience it. And experience trumps the mind. If what you're experiencing in your gut, in your intuition, in your solar plexus, those hunches, those gut instincts that we can't argue them away. We just can't. We all have had them. We know, a lot of times we know after the fact when we didn't listen, but we know when you have an experience, and your mind cannot argue with that. So that is one of the best gateways to having an actual tangible experience. And then you can start, lining it up with other experiences that you may have had that may have been as direct or maybe more subtle. And then you can kind of choose where you go. You don't have to do this as a profession. You don't have to hang out a shingle. You don't have to, wrestle with pricing and hours of operation. You can do this to help and rescue animals or fosters become more adoptable. You can do this to build interspecies family harmony and create closer connections with your animals. People embark upon this for all kinds of reasons, but at the end of the day, it's available to you. You too can do this. It's just up to you if this is a good moment in your life where you have a little space and a little time and a little energy to play, to dream, to imagine, to explore, and to experience. So if you want to find us, I'm assuming you're coming for me, but let's be honest, you're really coming for Pearl and Malty and Bruce, my turtle and my tortoise. You can find us at animallovelanguages.com. We'd love to work with you. We'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for burning questions about animal communication, you can leave them in the show notes, or you can email me. If you have a question for Maribeth, you know how to find her, Maribeth at sacredgrove.com. If you'd like to hear from an animal communicator I have not interviewed, reach out and I will do my utmost. And of course, you know how important it is already. I don't even have to tell you, but I can't resist. Please give us your highest and best review. 5 stars would be excellent if you're in the mood. And please feel free to share with anyone you think would enjoy listening to Let's Talk to Animals. We've been honored with a little bit of your time and attention, and we don't take it for granted. Really appreciate it. Maribeth, thank you again for your time,
Thank you for having
generosity. Yeah, absolutely. A joy and a delight. And we will be back. Pearl, we will be back with you very, very soon. There you go. Just a few more belly kisses for the road. Alrighty. Love to all of you, and bye for now. Talk to you soon.
Bye.